quick
Yes, go
topic,
ahead.
Jen? The House today passed a bill to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. It obviously faces some tough odds in the Senate. What's the White House's take on that, and to what extent is President Biden involved in that going forward?
Well, President Biden strongly supports D.C. statehood, and we will our administration will work with Congress to get it passed. We put out a statement of administration policy in strong support of H.R. 51 just this morning. His view is that the denial of voting representation in Congress and local self-government to the 712,000 residents of our nation's capital violates two of our nation's founding principles: no taxation without representation and consent of the governed. And he will continue to advocate for this passing. I will also note an interesting detail I didn't know until this morning is that there are a number of members, of course, of the armed forces, retired military, who of course live in the District of Columbia and are denied as a result of having the lack of statehood, the rights that many others around the country have. So there are a number of issues why this is absolutely the right step, and the president will continue to advocate for it. Go ahead and back.
I wanted to follow up on the questions about the climate and NDC.
Sure.
Secretary Kerry, you talked about how important Glasgow will be in November when all the countries come together to meet to ratify their NDCs. And given the importance of that meeting and the importance, I think, for the United States to demonstrate its commitment to action prior to that, how essential is it that Congress passes the administration's infrastructure plans with the green energy investments in it, given that you're also up here saying the market will kind of take care of this?
I certainly am not trying to apply that. The market's part of it, and the private sector is part of it. And I think that's an important component of the very good question of, how will we ensure that these changes are ingrained in the future? But there is absolutely a role for government to play, some through executive action, some through legislation. The president wants to sign the American Jobs Plan into law this summer. So that gives us ample time, ample room between that timeline and when Glasgow will happen. But we also believe that there are a number of pathways to meeting our goals and meeting our objectives, and we certainly hope to move forward on a number of them in advance of that meeting in November.
So it sounds like you're saying that's not the only way that the U.S. can demonstrate its commitment to action prior to November.
Correct. There are a number of pathways that include steps that can be taken within each sector or steps that can be taken by the government or local governments in partnership with a range of sectors. So we see a range of pathways to get to that, keep moving forward toward that goal.
Just one other question about your response to the initial overtures from Republicans on the infrastructure package. You said you do see that as a good faith effort. It's roughly a quarter of the size, top line number that the administration is proposing. Back during the COVID relief talks, when Republicans proposed a number that was roughly a third of what the administration wanted, you dismissed them pretty quickly. What's different about this situation and this policy proposal compared to the relief package, where you seem willing to take Republicans where they are and maybe allow more time for?
Well, I think, one, it's the beginning of a discussion, right? And the next steps will be conversations at the staff level, conversations between senior members of our administration, members of Congress, appropriate committee staff through the course of next week. And then, as I noted, the president will invite members down to the White House. But there are a lot of details to be discussed. The American Rescue Plan, but we do see them differently. The American Rescue Plan was an emergency package. We were trying to deal with what we saw continues to be an emergency fight against a global pandemic, a situation where more than 10 million people were out of work. Obviously, we've seen some progress, still more work to be done. And the president felt it was imperative that the size of that package, the scope of that package met the moment and that it happened quickly. We have a little bit more time here, and we are very open to hearing a range of mechanisms, a range of options for moving this package forward. There could be smaller packages that pass. There could be different mechanisms for moving things forward. And we think it can be done on a bipartisan basis. And so we're looking for the opportunity to do that. Go ahead, Jen.
You mentioned this $400,000 a year level for, nobody's taxes will be raised above that. But there's been some confusion or lack of clarity around whether that's individuals or couples or families, so what is the actual 400,000 definition?
Individuals.
Okay. So, okay.
But I understand the question, and there'll be more specifics about any of these tax proposals when we lay out the plan.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So it's a question related to the president's upcoming speech on Wednesday. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why it was important for the president to actually deliver the speech at the Capitol building versus, remotely here from the White House, given everything that happened on January 6th and given the concerns about, the coronavirus. Why is it important for him to, physically be there?
Well, first, the president was in the Senate for 36 years, and he is a person who has not just a long history, but a great deal of respect for the institution of government that is Congress. And he also recognizes, as we all do, that it's an opportunity to speak to the people who you will work with in partnership to get business done for the American public, but also to speak directly to the American people, as this will be a prime time timed address, as it always has been throughout history. And so it is an opportunity that he's been eager to take advantage of. Obviously, we've been working in partnership or in cooperation with the Speaker's office for the last several months. And as you touched on, certainly there were unique factors this year. Obviously, we always take into account security, but in doing this in a way that is COVID safe is something that the Speaker's office and leaders in Congress are very cognizant of. Go ahead.
Hi. Two questions. First, from someone who can't be here due to coronavirus restrictions. The New York Times is reporting neither drug pricing nor health coverage will be part of the American Families Plan proposal. Is that accurate? And is the president still committed to getting those done and discussing them in his speech next week?
Well, I expect the president, as I noted, to talk about the American Families Plan in his joint address, as well as a number of other issues, as I answered in response to Jeff's question, important to him, including health care, the need to put in place police reforms. He's made clear his commitment to expanding access to health care. It's why he opened a special enrollment period during this pandemic. We're excited by the progress we've made. More than 500,000 Americans have signed up for coverage since the president was inaugurated. It's why he put into the American Rescue Plan subsidies to make it more cost effective for many Americans. And of course, the president's number one priority has been tackling the greatest health crisis our country has faced in generations. And just a reminder, again, this is a speech. It is an important moment. It is an opportunity to lay out his agenda, but it will not represent the totality of every proposal he wants to achieve during the course of his presidency. It is also still being finalized, and the president will do some thinking work himself on it over the coming days.
On a very different note, obviously the president played golf at the weekend. Is there anything else you can tell us about how he spends his evenings and weekends? Is he reading books? Is he listening to music? Is he watching movies? What does he do?
Look, the president is very close with his family, not just Dr. Biden, of course, but his grandchildren, and he has the opportunity to see them at times over the weekend and also see his kids, and that's important to him, an important way of how he spends time. Like many Americans, of course, he enjoys movies, and he has 2 dogs he loves, and I would say I think he likes to spend time with family and loved ones and take a moment to take a breath, just like most people across the country do when he has the limited amount of free time you have as leader of the free world. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Has everyone on the White House staff now been vaccinated, especially those who come in contact with the president?
It's been a priority, George. I'll have to get back to you on the specific numbers, and we've tried to be quite transparent about that, and I'm happy to do that. It's been a priority, of course, to ensure that the White House staff, especially those who have close contact with the president, are vaccinated. But every member of the White House staff, as you well know from covering this place, I don't think that would be accurate at this point in time, but we'll check on the numbers. I will just reiterate or restate that we also take a number of precautions, including, of course, wearing N95 masks when we are in meetings. We have very limited meetings. There's a very limited footprint in the White House. We have also a number of staff who are working from home still, who would normally be working on the complex. So, but we're working to vaccinate staff. I'll see if we can get an updated number to you and others who are interested in that.
Acknowledging that the White House is not a normal workspace,
Yeah.
what are you looking for that would allow you to make the decision that the president doesn't have to wear a mask when he's around people who've been tested and vaccinated.
I expect, just like all of you and like many Americans across the country, we're going to wait for the health and medical experts to provide guidance on when it is safe to do exactly that. Go ahead in the back.
Thank you, Jen. Two climate summit questions.
Sure.
Secretary Kerry yesterday, he said without China at the table, there's simply no way to resolve the climate crisis. How will the U.S. work with China in the field of climate?
Well, Secretary Kerry has already had discussions, and I expect we'll have, I was talking to him right before we came out here, we'll have follow-up questions after President Xi's remarks this morning, or follow-up conversations. There's no question that China has an important role to play in working with the global community to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, address our climate crisis. That was the case when the Paris Climate Agreement was signed 5 years ago and continues to be the case today.
And also the credibility issue. Market matters, but government matters too. Can you guarantee the United States can follow through its commitment until 2030?
That's absolutely what our commitment is to not just lay out goals, but to take steps to achieve it. And we have a number of pathways to get there. The president has identified the climate as one of the 4 crises facing his presidency. And the fact that we are hosting a global climate summit under 100 days of his presidency certainly speaks to how important it is. Go ahead.
You know what administration in office in 2030 the U.S. will carry out its commitment?
Well, again, I think as my colleagues here spoke to, this is where the private sector is going. This is where government is going. These are industries that are going to create jobs in the future, and we certainly have every expectation and hope that future administrations will deliver on the groundwork we do over the next several years. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I have a couple of questions, if I may. One, on today's the first anniversary of the murder, disappearance of the soldier Vanessa Guillen of Fort Hood, Texas. The family is still asking. They held a press conference today asking this Biden administration for justice. They want to meet with the president. Is the president aware of the case, and would he be willing to meet with the family?
He's certainly aware of the case, as we all are, and know the family has been heartbroken. I didn't see the press conference this morning, but have certainly followed the case myself. I don't have any planned meetings or commitments to read out from here.
And then on Tuesday, when the Hispanic Caucus was here, they said that the president committed to putting together a sort of a task force on an emergency basis to send to the border when there are surges of migrants coming in. Is this something that the president would work on right away? Could we see such a task force go to the border in the next few months?
I'd have to check on what the specifics of that are. I mean, we have already sent DART teams to some of these countries in the region to help address and provide additional humanitarian assistance. I don't know if there was a reference to that. We've also worked with a number of countries in Central America to help increase personnel and resources at the border to reduce the influx or movement of migrants to our own border, but I'd have to check on what the specifics of that actually are.
And the last one on the climate
Sure.
summit today, do you have any idea why the Mexican young lady who spoke, Shilda Batista, came in before she was supposed to, why she was moved up on the agenda today?
I'd have to check on her schedule. I don't know why sometimes things move in the schedule. As you saw this morning, there was an enormous Herculean technological effort underway here, and sometimes there are movements in schedule because of that, but we're happy to check on that for you too. Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being so patient in your seats. I should have brought snacks today, you know? I can bring snacks tomorrow? Okay. Okay, great. COVID safe, a little snack bag for everyone. It'll be yesterday's food. Yeah, exactly.